Okay, committee, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the Utilities Committee. We had changed rooms and a little change of venue just today because of conflict with another committee who needed our bigger room upstairs. So appreciate the working with us on that. I see pretty much everybody's found their way here, and those a few senators who will join us late, I'm sure will get the notification. We're trying to get a hold of them. Before we get started, want to open it up to any bill introductions. Are there any bill introductions today from the committee or from the room? Seeing none, we do have today an informational brief. It's kind of a little thinking out of the box a little bit. We oftentimes hear from industries on their various issues, and we very rarely hear from individual private citizens about particular situations. And thought today would be a perfect opportunity to do that. We've got Gayla Randall online, and she lives out in north central Kansas. She has worked all over the country, including Washington, D.C. and in Montana and various locations, but lives here in Kansas because she likes where she's at and the peace and tranquility out there. And today she's going to give us a little brief on her perspective and some of the folks out in that area's perspective of how wind development issues have impacted rural Kansas. So Gayla, you are on the line, and we'll turn it over to you. We do have her, right?
I think I was muted. Can you hear me?
And if we could turn it up just a little bit on our end. Yeah, we've got you, Gayla. Thank you.
I'm just going to just say some general introductions, just ensure that you can hear me correctly. Just give me a thumbs up if you would, Senator. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
My name is Gayla.
Oh, Gayla, I'm sorry, could you turn on your video?
Should be on.
Oh, should be on? Okay.
Are you able to?
We're looking.
Do you see me?
Not yet, but we're working on it.
Okay, I know I was on earlier. They were able to see me.
There we go. We got you now. Okay, now you can go.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Senator Thompson and committee, for allowing me to provide some insight into a side of renewable developments in Kansas that you may not be aware of, or if you are, maybe not heard it in a way that resonates with you on what I'm about to say. I could have lived anywhere. I do consultant work. I'm an educator by trade, which causes me to question things and search for answers. I believe it's been about 3 years ago, potentially, that I wrote a very lengthy email to Senator Thompson on the Utilities Committee about some things I was seeing and that I was concerned about. And that's what led him to ask if I could provide some guidance or some insight to those of you that happen to be at the meeting today. I am a concerned citizen in Kansas. My husband raised 2 children. They're adults now. I have spoken to individuals across the state, other states in our country about similar concerns. And so I'm speaking to you feeling that I'm not alone in what I'm about to say. I really want to ensure that you understand that renewables is something that is to be explored. We do have issues that we need to address in Kansas as well as a nation, but I think we need to step back and really look at it from all angles in what's happening. I believe that there is appropriate locations for renewables. I think there are some deep investigations that need to happen. We have had renewable energy projects in the state of Kansas since the early 2000s. So we have some places in which we could really get more information and provide some guidance on what Kansas might want to consider, what I think they should consider to provide some oversight and some policy to ensure that Kansas remains the state that we have come to love. There are some items that I had shared with you via a document, which I believe was shared with you or will be shared with you if it hasn't already, that captured some of the comments that I'm going to make to you today. So I'm just going to hit those that I think I really want to make sure that you hear, and offer some time for you to ask me questions.
And Gayla, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, for anybody who does want to follow on online, those documents are available. You can go to kansaslegislature.org, look for the Senate committee. I failed to mention that at the top. I'm sorry to interrupt with that.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, Senate committee. Look for the Utilities Committee. We're on the second page of the list of committees. And under that tab, you will find testimony, committee testimony. You click on that, and then you go to, there's a little checkbox that says click to select date, and the 20th will be highlighted. You click on that, and then Gayla's PDF is there for your download and viewing pleasure. So sorry to interrupt, Gayla, go ahead.
No, that's perfectly fine. I'm glad that you shared that. I do spend a lot of time documenting where my information comes from. There is a lot of information that's not documented that I'm not referring to, but I do think as a committee, working with potentially the local government and ethics committees, might want to explore further investigating some qualitative data as far as what's happened in Kansas. I personally have had experience living within a footprint of a development in Marshall County, and so can speak to that, which is the only experiences that I will refer to today, because I think you need to hear it from others. I do want to share too that there was quite a lengthy amount of testimony from individuals sharing their stories last session with Senate Bill 279. So I do suggest and encourage you to review those. Some have very strong emotion because of what's happened and what is felt to have been lost. Some of the things that I want you to note is, according to the Southwest Power Pool number of projects that have been submitted by developers for the state of Kansas, including what is already in place, totals 230 projects. This is wind and solar and battery collection systems. This includes miles and miles and miles of cabling, transmission lines. It includes the construction phases of these, which has some concerns related to road use, state highway compromise, safety issues, and such. Again, I'm not going to get into that today, but I think there is information that needs to be obtained by those in decision-making power, your committee being one. Thank you. Wind development in Kansas has actually expanded 500% over the last decade, and it is expected to increase. In fact, in 2021, there was 26 additional projects, which I did include in the 230 projects that I identified. Every county has at least one project planned for the state. Now, I do want to share of the 230 projects submitted, that does not mean every one of the projects will happen, but it's the desire of the developers to have projects submitted because of the length of time it takes for the Southwest Power Pool to review and approve those. But there are approximately 230 in the submission right now for the state. Every turbine that is erected requires oil. I was told and read and validated 55 to 80 gallons of oil, depending on the size. That needs to be replaced annually. The substation transformers actually hold tankers of oil. The substation transformer in the Irish Creek Wind Farm that's close to where I reside had three tankers of oil that was needed to fill it. The reason why I'm mentioning that is what happens to that oil when it is disposed. I'm very concerned in the fact that I had read some documents shared with landowners that chose not to participate in the Irish Creek that mentioned a phrase that said the lease would allow the developer to have access to, and I want to make sure I read this correctly, agreement to allow development above, below, across, and through the property. I'm not sure what that means with oil disposal, but I am thinking about it from water aquifers. We have 3,500 turbines in Kansas presently. If we had oil leaks, how is that reported? How is that cleaned up? Do we have any monitoring of where that's disposed? In addition, turbines in the transformers have something called SF6 gas, which is more deadly and concerning than CO2 levels. How are those regulated? How are they monitored? There's rare earth metals that are needed for both solar and for wind projects. They are considered toxic to the environment. How are those disposed? The blades of turbines presently are not recyclable. Now they might in the future, but they aren't right now. That would mean right now we have over 10,000 blades that would need to be disposed of at some point in the future. Are those buried on the farm ground that they're erected in? Are they stored somewhere in Kansas? Are they left along the roadside? I am not trying to, I'm just asking questions. I do know that this has been a concern in other states, and there's been certain land fills, if you will, where they're buried. But if this happens to be on a land that's been leased, do we have a tracking system? If they sell the land, do the land sellers have to disclose that blades are buried on the property? I think you can see where I'm going with that particular concern. The other concern I have is that 50% of our counties are not zoned in any way. That causes a real concern of mine in that I don't know where those counties are getting the non-biased input of what their allowances are as far as legal and powers to control or direct or say no to development. There happens to be a handbook that Kansas wrote in 2005. I believe it has not been updated. I have the link in my testimony that I shared with you. It actually is to provide guidance. It's called the name, the Wind Energy Siting Handbook, Guideline Options for Kansas Cities and Counties. It proceeds to share that there are 4 options an unzoned county can follow for siting, and in this case, it's just talking about wind. I am not aware that there's any guidance document for solar for the state of Kansas. If anyone has that, please add that to this conversation, but I'm not aware of any guidance. The 4 options that counties can select is status quo, adopt zoning, other regulations such as licenses and moratoriums. Well, status quo, and this is a quote, unzoned counties may simply choose not to regulate the siting of wind energy development, which delegates the ultimate decision on the siting of such development with the developers and landowners, either individually or collectively. That in paper sounds like it would be a legitimate selection. However, I did a little bit of study and found that the latest census, Kansas has 921,000 approximately people living rural. That's about 25, almost 26% of the population in the state. In a Department of Agriculture document I found, it is 2017, we had just about 59,000 farms, which obviously are rural. The census also shared in Kansas that our households are approximately 2.5 people. So if you times the number of farms, 2.5 people per se, you could say there's about 145 people living on farms, which means about 84% of rural residents are not farms. So they're living rural. So if the status quo is selected as the option for counties, who is leading the insurance that those that aren't landowners, that aren't even a possibility of being a participant, that their rights are heard? So if you bear with me for a little bit, I have an analogy which I'm going to show, and it has to do with a piece of a pie. So if we consider that in society, the rights of people are considered like a pie, and you slice the pie, and I get a slice of the pie, and Senator Thompson gets a slice of the pie, and Senator Hawk gets a slice of the pie. I see you on the screen here. That's how society functions. But however, when you look at a landowner that has the only right when it comes to development, it gives them the permission to have their slice of the pie, but it could easily, and what has been seen happen, and I saw it in my own community, that the slice is taken like this, which means that some individuals are impacted by what they're doing, but they are not allowed to have a voice per se. Now, I do need to back up a minute and share that landowners are not necessarily farmers. And farmers may be landowners, but they also rent land because of the way the economy is. We have people who live rural but are not farmers. They might have a small bit of land, 5 to 10 acres, if you will. And then we have participating in land developments who've signed their land leases to development, which goes with it some loss of control of that land use, and also non-participants who have borders, if you will, to the landowners that are considering, or maybe not, but considering being a participant. So when you're looking at the status quo option, what it appears that a number of counties have done, the only individuals that have a voice are those that are the landowners. Now, the landowners themselves are not necessarily living in Kansas. They're not necessarily living in the footprint. They can actually edit their lease, and potentially, I have one more of my analogy, take their slice in a couple ways, so they're not as impacted. So what I am presenting to you is the hope that there could be some policy that you would look to consider that would offer a place where all residents in the state of Kansas living rural have their rights and their desires to stay in Kansas retained. Now, one of the things that I wanted to mention is 2001 was when Kansas first had wind development. And in 2002, according to a report by the Wind Technologies Market, and again, I have this all in my testimony, the average height of a turbine was about 213 feet in 2002. Today, they are 500 to 600 feet, and there's actually was a proposal that was in a Washington Republic County newspaper for a new project that a developer is looking at, in which they are saying those turbines will be 700 to 800 feet tall. So 500 feet tall is 46 stories. I understand that the Capitol building in Topeka is 323 feet tall, approximately. I'm going by memory, so I'm sure someone can offer the actual height. So you can understand why individuals in rural areas are concerned about the influx of commercialization and erecting multiple turbines are a concern. The industry shares that a acceptable setback from a turbine to your home, not your property line, but your home, is about 1,500 feet. And so I did a little bit of research to find out where that came from. And that actually, I believe, came from a safety manual from a Vesta developer. It's actually from 2006. Industry is not sharing a more updated safety manual that I've been aware of. We've asked in Marshall County for a safety manual and have yet to receive this. That was requested in 2020. But at that point, on page 3 of the manual, it states that for an operator under a turbine to be safe, the distance needs to be 1,300 to 1,640 feet to eliminate injury. Now, remember, that was 2006, and approximately 2006, the turbines were between 250 feet and 300 feet tall. So now we're talking 500 to 800 feet tall, but yet the wind industry says their standard is 1,500 feet. So in Michigan, using one's property as part of the setback, they've coined the term trespass zoning, which means that the safety setback, even at 1,500 feet, is being counted in the private property of a non-participant. And that has been a real concern of mine for some of my neighbors who have turbine siting close to their homes and overlapping into their properties. So if you look at the setback that should happen if it's based on height, we're talking a turbine twice that height, then the very minimum should be 3,000 feet, I would imagine. I'm just kind of trying to organize some thought around that. As if they were shorter and you needed this much of a setback, it would make sense. If they're taller, then there should be further setback. However, in the state of Kansas, we have no policy. And so it's left to the understanding of local decision makers. And again, where are they going to go for their information of what they should be looking at for a setback distance, if they're even looking at zoning. And so some states and some counties in other states have a minimum of a mile setback. I'm going to share with you some information that I found from the World Health Organization related to some health concerns as well. This is related to sound. The Acoustic Ecological Institute, and again, I've put all this in my testimony, states that sound in an average rural daytime is between 30 and 35 decibels. And at night, that decreases to between 25 and 30 decibels, just to give you an idea of what rural space quiet normally is. The sound level was identified by the World Health Organization that between 40 decibels and 35 decibels nighttime noise is aligned as allowable, but as that noise increases, they have a study that was published, excuse me, not the World Health Organization, but the Journal of Acoustical Society states that for every 1 decibel increase of noise, the odds of hearing the turbine increases by 31%. So that's 1 decibel. The same study shared that if a turbine was closer than 6,563 feet, 6,563 feet, that adverse noise was mitigated to the level that it could be acceptable by rural residents. Now, this is talking about noise. The only thing I've ever found to mitigate noise is distance, setback. Gage County, Nebraska adopted a mile setback, which is not quite 6,500 feet, but the World Health Association does recognize turbines as having health risk, and it's related to noise. So whereas the earlier things that I shared with you is the closeness to the property line or a person's home based on the height, that was direct injury, from things like blade compromise or ice throw. This is about noise. So the World Health Organization goes on to state that at 50 decibels to 60 decibels, now remember, normal daytime for rural is 30 to 35. Hypertension and myocardial infarction is linked. Over 60 decibels is linked with some psychotic disorders. Now, this is the World Health Organization that has quoted this in their studies. I do want to share that the Irish Creek Wind Farm allowances in Marshall County was 50 decibels is allowed. That's any time of day or night. We also have a number of individuals that have 5 or more turbines less than a mile from their homes. It was all approved by our commissioners. Again, I go back to what you can do in some of the bills that you may have in front of you, both as utilities, but also I realize that there's several, Senator Bowers and Senator Corson, you're on the local government and ethics committees, that those might have some bills as well, and to really seriously consider those because of some of the issues that I'm bringing to your attention today. We also have the concerns of, and I go in more detail of some of the things that happened in Marshall County, and I can talk to those because I have actually witnessed those myself. One of the things I have to share is I'm a lover of the Flint Hills. I mean, there's nowhere in the world where there are the Flint Hills. And I know we have a governor's moratorium to protect from wind development. That does not protect from solar or battery generation and storage, which might be something to consider. I also know that the moratorium does not extend to the entire Flint Hills area. A few of us in Marshall County requested from the governor to extend the Flint Hills into the southern part of Marshall County, which is recognized by multiple sources, geographically linked as part of the Flint Hills. There's less than 4% left. It's a very unique ecosystem with native grass and prairie chickens, the flora and the fauna, and it's an ecosystem that we have got to cherish and continue to try to protect. However, when there are no state oversights and policies, turbines can be installed within mere feet of a county line of a county that is a part of the moratorium. That is what's happened in Marshall County. We have a line of turbines less than a half a mile from the Pottawatomie County border, which means it is now trespass zoning, if you will, to Pottawatomie County. There's also a resident that lives just over the county line into Pot County, and he has absolutely no voice from anyone. The development was in Marshall County. He lives in Pottawatomie County. He has no platform for the Marshall County commissioners because he lives in Pot County. He has no platform with the Pottawatomie County commissioners because they're not involved in wind farm development. This is why state level policy has got to be looked at, in my opinion. I am going to stop at that point with one last thought. I have a true love for the state. It bothers me that at the state level, we are allowing things to happen which can negatively influence the decision of our youth who wish to come back to Kansas, especially living rural, to come back and live there. If my own family asked about coming into the state of Kansas and buying property and investing thousands of dollars in building a home, I would tell them not to come to Kansas. If you're coming to Kansas, you need to live in a city limit. Those are the only spaces that you can guarantee zoning to protect you and your property, not just in wind development or renewables, but in other development. I live with pasture all around me. I don't mind that the cows get out and eat my garden every once in a while. That's just part of living rural. I grew up on a farm. I have a true desire to retain farming, but I think there has to be some policies to ensure that we all have an equal part of the pie. And I believe that committees such as yours have the opportunity to put some policies in place. There are a number of questionable ethical things happening, in my opinion. Again, it's just my opinion. I have had developers tell me things that I found were not entirely truthful. I'm not going to go into those because that doesn't really impact what you're doing today, but I would question and search for answers. And please, please ask the residents in Kansas that are living close to commercialization in real spaces and what's happened. Find out their stories, read those testimonies from last session to see what's happening, so that you can really step back and see what you feel in your places of power can do to attain the real space that we have and ensure that people come back and live rural, because I don't want to live anywhere else but Kansas, and I don't want to live anywhere else in Kansas but in my rural area. So I'm hoping I can. Thank you, Senator Thompson. I'm going to stop and see if anyone has questions or comments. I do have some thoughts on some ways in which you could collect some data from the state, but I know Senator Thompson, you and I visited about that also. I will stop and please entertain any questions that you have.
Thank you, Gayla. Very comprehensive, and hopefully everybody in the committee will have a chance to read this document. You've done your homework on that. Committee, are there any questions? Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a comment. I've been here a long time. I've seen a lot on property rights battled up here. I think, I don't know if you call him Senator or former Speaker of the House, Ray Merrick, battled a lot on property rights up here. And, you know, to me, this argument sounds like now we're going to tell landowners what to do with their land, the people that paid for it, the hardworking. I mean, what's next? Are we going to start talking about oil wells on lands and taking their rights away? I don't know. I believe we set something up in the state on all energies. We've set up, they're all pretty fair, in my opinion, on tax abatements to everything. And I think the utilities are using the free market, and they're building what's best for their utility, what they can get financing, and their needs on the everyday. And so I don't know. I just feel like we're going down this trying to tell property owners on what, you know, this county, that county, what they can do with their land. And I mean, if I wouldn't live here if anything like this was in statute. I wouldn't buy a farm because, you know, someone down next to me or somewhere else could tell me what I can and can't do with my farmland. I wouldn't. So that's my comment. I think this battle's been fought, and you know, everybody wants to tear the wind industry down. I think they've done a great job in this state. I think they've built a lot of wind because we have a lot of it. It's reliable. We're exporting it all over the country. And, you know, I'm tired of people trying to tear down the wind. I think they're doing a good job. I hope they keep growing in this state, and I hope they keep sending it all over the country. So that's my comment.
Care to respond to that, Gayla?
Well, I would just share that, yes, thank you, and I appreciate and respect that we are in a democratic society where we all have the opportunity to share our comments and our beliefs. I think that the property rights are two ways. I think it's okay if individuals can develop their properties in the way that they see fit, as long as the detriment stops at their property line. I think that means that the placement of turbines need further investigation and concern. I think that there are decisions that need to be made with everybody at the table, and I don't believe that the non-participants' voices have been heard. This isn't a matter of saying you can't develop wind in Kansas. This isn't saying that me as a landowner, I can't have a turbine if I want it. But it needs to be placed in a way that respects the non-participating landowners as well. One individual's rights should not override the other one. There should be a way in which they could meet in the middle. And I've talked to individuals where that's not been the case. And they're questioning if they can remain in their homes because of some of the situations that have happened. I wanted to bring to your attention some of the things like the oil usage and the disposal of the wind blades and what Kansas' plan is for that. So that was why I went into some of that detail. But as far as property rights and telling somebody what to do with their land, I think that we've all got to come to the table, and in my right to do what I do with my property makes sense, but it should stop at my property line.
Senator Peterson?
Thank you, Gail. I appreciate your report. Appreciate all the sites. I'm going to try and alleviate some of your concern over the oil and the transformers. That transformer oil is very expensive, and when it's brought onto the sites, it's required to have a safety data sheet with it. Most of that oil, when it's changed out, is either pumped out and replaced, but it's taken and it's filtered. It's expensive. They do not want to do it. Your contracts say you have to follow the safety data sheets. So in a safety data sheet, it lists the lower exposure limit, the higher exposure limit, what to do in case of a spill, how to clean it up. And believe me, they push that all the way through on the transformers, and that is a great thing, protecting us, particularly with your sulfur hexafluoride and some of the transformer oils. You know, they are toxic chemicals. There's toxic chemicals in a lot of things that we use, but that expensive oil out of those transformers, they do not dump that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate knowing that. Does that also expand over to turbine? No?
I don't know about the grease in the turbines. I'm an industrial electrician. I haven't changed out the grease in the turbines. That'd been a millwright probably doing that, but I do know about the transformer oil.
Related to that, again, this is just from another state, if I can, Senator Thompson. Kansas relies on water aquifers, and I know in Ontario, Canada, there's issues with compromise of water aquifer because of oil spill went down through the turbine shaft down into the ground. Do you know if we have any guidance or thought about a required water aquifer study? I know one was not done in Marshall County.
I'm not aware of it. Senator Peterson, do you know about that?
I don't know if there's any of the study on it, but I do know on the down tower assemblies, on a lot of the towers, that's the base, and where it's dropped and put it in there, it's like a concrete swimming pool down there, so it captures anything that comes out of the top. It also has the conduits have to be sealed that leave there that go to the transformer. That's why they want to go down and across, because a lot of the lines from the turbine to the transformer are actually underground. A lot less susceptible to weather and icing and things like that. And it's cheaper because it's closer. The power's already busts down to the bottom of the tower.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Peterson. I was going to just make some remarks about the rules that we've seen in the Natural Resources committee regarding KDHE and their oversight of spills. There is a particular amount that you are not allowed to spill over without reporting. And I am so appreciative of what our Kansas Department of Health and Environment is doing. But I did have a question for you. I should probably look this up, but is Marshall County zoned?
No, it is not.
And have the residents been working to get it zoned?
Yes, we were told by our commissioners they're not interested in zoning.
I assume it'll be a question asked at the next county commissioner forum before an election.
Yes. We have asked for it to actually be on a vote, for the citizens to vote, and at this point, there's not been approval to add that to the ballot.
Any other questions, committee? I do know, and what Gail is speaking about, we're seeing in other counties. I've been in Marysville, Sabetha, Seneca, Mound City, Fort Scott, all of these different communities, and this problem with the trespass zoning is a big deal, and it's probably a new name that a lot of people aren't familiar with, and that's the fact that these turbines are very large, and a lot of the communities who are up in arms over this are primarily, having the problems because in a lot of cases, these are unzoned counties, they are rural counties, and they don't have the wherewithal to investigate a lot of these issues. And I think the point is that we can't, if we have a county by county patchwork of how to deal with this, we're not protecting the rural areas of Kansas that are unzoned. We need to tell them, hey, let's protect, these are big. These have huge footprints, both the wind and the solar. And if we don't step in and help these counties and help these residents, then we're just going to be overrun. And I think you spoke to that largely, but that's going to be a debate going forward. And those are the complaints that I'm hearing from these rural residents who feel like they have no voice. Gayla?
I just wanted to share that at the very minimum, the 2005 document on siting wind in Kansas needs to be updated. It's very outdated, and if that's where county commissioners are going for information, it's very lacking in some guidance, some non-biased guidance about what their powers are. I think it could really be helpful. And also, don't forget those individuals like the gentleman that I told you about who has a farm. It's in Pottawatomie County, but really close to the Marshall County line. He would not benefit from either county having a policy without thinking about how it overlaps. So a state level foundational policy would address some of those issues that cross the county line, not only for him, but also in the protection of the Flint Hills and the ecosystems that are meeting at a county line to ensure those aren't compromised as well.
It makes it very hard for somebody like that because they don't have anybody to go to. They don't. Committee, any other questions? Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is not so much a question, but I know that there are a number of rural residents and probably some suburban or urban residents that are not comfortable with zoning because of the limitations it may put on their ability to do things. And so zoning is an issue, like most, of balance. So it brings protection, but it also brings some limitations. And I think we need to respect the wishes of the residents of the counties about whether they would like to be zoned, because I would be concerned about zoning that just addressed one business or one industry rather than adoption of zoning practices that did affect a variety of the concerns of the residents. So I will check. I think that I represent one county that's zoned and one county that is not. And so I've seen some of the concerns and reasons that people have moved to a county that's not zoned.
Any comments on that, Ms. Randall?
I would move to a county that is zoned if it provided the protection that, if very minimal zoning, if need be, that all property owners have the right to have their property respected. As far as some of the limitations that some zoning for some people, I would like to have a study actually on the negatives and the positives of the mainly rural counties that are actually zoned. Because I can tell you from living in a non-zoned county how difficult it is to have your voice heard when 3 people are in charge of making decisions for the whole county, and their thought about obtaining insight from the residents appear to be limited.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Olson.
You know, I mean, you mentioned a couple counties, Lynn and Bourbon. I grew up down in that part of the country. There's a lot of people down there that don't want zoning for a lot of reasons in them communities. I mean, they've got local representation. If they want to replace that representation to get zoning, they can do that. But there's a reason. I mean, places like Lynn County, I don't know if it's still, you know, they didn't have alcohol sales for, I don't know if they still, but, you know, it's up to the county and what they want to do and the people down there. You know, some of them areas are very conservative or old-fashioned, and they don't want the zoning. They don't want someone telling them that they can't work on their car on their farm, or they don't want, you know, that's what the people want, and I think we need to think about respecting, you know, they got former representation, they got the form to replace it. Yeah, there might be some people down there that want to change that to zone county. I bet you there's as many people moving in zone counties as there are moving to unzoned counties too, because for that same reason. And here the state's trying to meddle in and zone these counties. They'll figure it out. I mean, Bourbon County, I think the chair down there is a former colleague of me when I was in the House. Len O'Hare was the county chair just recently. Very sophisticated, understands what the county wants and needs. And, you know, I think, you know, this is just another thing we're meddling. People, they want a statewide control, and then next thing you know, the same people are going to be telling them they can't have an oil well, or they can't work on their car, or they got to build a building for that tractor, or what. And I disagree with this line. So, thank you.
Well, this is, thank you, Senator. This was an informational brief to give a perspective from a rural community and perspective that I'm seeing more and more across the state. And speaking of Lynn and Bourbon County, I did speak to residents down there, and in both cases where I showed up, there were hundreds of people. Once you've got the specter of a 500-foot turbine in your backyard, it suddenly changes your perspective on whether or not you should have a voice in what's going on. And when it comes down to 3 people making that decision, and one of those people, and in some cases, like in Labette County, 2 of those commissioners had signed leases and refused to recuse themselves, then you've got a problem. Then you've got a real issue. And so I think this is something we do have to consider at the state level, because it's happening more and more, and there's more proliferation of this. We've got at least an additional 1,000 turbines coming across the state that are planned, 26 additional projects. So I respect the landowners' rights that they want to do what they want to do with their particular land, but when it slops over onto the neighbor's property, and affects their ability to even sell their property, then I think if the counties aren't doing the job, they have statutory home rule in the county, then the state does have the authority to step in. We are about out of time. Gayla, thank you very, very much for your testimony. I appreciate it. I think the committee gleaned quite a bit, and I think this is a discussion that's going to continue. And I thank you all very, very much for your time. And we have no meeting tomorrow, and we will have 2 bills we're hearing next week. Thank you, and we're adjourned.